Hey there, friends and enemies, Joper here again, and Blizzard is making some changes to Diablo 4, heading into full release after hearing the feedback from the beta. This is a good thing for me personally. I'm excited that they're listening and understanding that some of the classes just didn't feel fun to play in the early game. I'm going to explain at the end of the video why I think things are going to change drastically once we have full release and we can get to max level and experience the full diversity of builds, but you have to enjoy the ride to get there, and that's something that I hope these changes will make a little bit easier for Diablo 4 going forward, because I want to play all 5 classes if at all possible and enjoy my time with them. So hopefully this makes that possible for sure. The Barbarian, for example, is getting a flat 10% passive damage reduction, and this is huge. Some skill tree passives have had their damage reduction effects reduced to compensate. Again, that's fine, but like overall that might hurt it long term. But overall, it's going to be good and better for the early game for the Barbarian, in my personal opinion. It'll be interesting to see how it all stacks once you have your max damage reduction at the end game. But initially, being able to stay alive, the game doesn't feel like it rewards melee play as much as it does ranged or companion play. So that's why I would love to see more focus on those melee builds, being able to tank things and get in there and do a lot of damage, all that kind of stuff, and play aggressively, because that's how I want to play a Barbarian. The Whirlwind skill now deals more damage and consumes more fury. That potentially could be solid, especially as you spec into more damage for the Whirlwind skill and you're able to just do increased single shot damage essentially. Then we've also got the double swing skill enhancement. It refunds its full fury cost when used on stunned or knocked down enemies. This potentially could be really good if you do a stun or knockdown build and really lean into that. So I think those are good changes overall, and I'm excited to get hands-on with those. Druid companion skills will now deal heavily increased damage. I love companions. I'm a big fan of companions, no matter the class that I'm playing, so I'm excited about that. All ultimate skills have their cooldowns reduced. Nice. Usability improvements have made to the Maul and Pulverize. Potentially good. I don't know what those usability enhancements are, but if Maul and Pulverize are better, then I'm excited about that. Using a non-shape-shifting skill will transform a druid back into their human form. That makes sense, and I'm not surprised by that. Hopefully these changes lead to the druid just feeling more powerful, more consistent, although I still want to see more emphasis on playing melee builds with the druid and being viable options. So again, I think late game we will see that. Same thing for the Barbarian. I think we will see those melee builds really shine once you fully spec them out, but I want to enjoy the ride getting there, and hopefully that's the case going forward. Then we've also got the Necromancer. Summon minions will die more often, which is nice. Then we, because they were just kind of crazy. I know people were making some insane builds and there were just so many minions. That's a nerf there. Many bonuses in the Book of the Dead have had their stats increased. That's a buff. Then we've got the damage dealt by corpse explosion. Skill has been reduced. Corpse explosion builds were just so ridiculously strong in the beta that I am not surprised that it's getting nerfed. Again, I'll explain why in a little bit. I think nerfs are necessary in a game like this, even though I know not everyone will agree with me. Brightness of the skeletal warriors and mages has been reduced. That's fine. It makes sense. But the skeletons being too bright was annoying for a lot of people. It didn't bother me, but I can see why it did. Then we've got the rogue upgrades. So for subterfuge skills have had their bonuses increased. Say that 3 times fast. So subterfuge skills bonuses means that hopefully those subterfuge builds are more viable. I know the rogue felt like a class that you could really spec one way to make it super strong, and otherwise there were some things that were left to be desired. So multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increased, which is nice. All imbuement skills have had their cooldowns increased. Imbuement builds were definitely the strongest for the rogues, so I'm unsurprised that those are getting looked at, and essentially you just won't have your abilities active all the time, which was kind of wild. It was fun, I believe that, but again, it's unlike other classes where early on especially, because that wasn't even the end game, having the imbuement have unlimited cooldowns essentially with early game builds is kind of crazy, and I think you'll probably be able to get there again with more end game builds. So overall, I think two things. One, nerfs are necessary for a game like this at times. You want things to be balanced enough that it doesn't make end game content trivial and other classes irrelevant by being overshined too much. So you do want to do more buffs and more topping up of abilities rather than the nerfs. But you got to be careful, because if you do that for everything too much, the game just becomes too easy and it just doesn't help out anything. There's no challenge, there's no fun factor there. Then we've also got the situation where you have classes that are struggling in the beginning but really good at endgame. The problem with that is that having it struggle in the beginning means people aren't going to stick with those classes. So you want them to be fun and viable from the jump and across all the entire path towards the end game. Because as soon as something stops being fun, people aren't going to want to slog through that, and that's a real problem. So for me, I think I'm excited about these changes. I hope these classes are more fun going forward, and I hope the build diversity at the end game is so varied that we have loads of different options instead of just having one or two main options that everybody runs. That's my personal hope. I'm sure we'll see some that are like specifically built for world bosses and that kind of stuff. We don't have loadouts, so you won't be able to change your builds too crazily, but I'm excited about that to eventually come as well. And overall, I'm excited about the changes. I think they're a good thing overall, and I think going forward, I'm excited to see how Blizzard continues to update the game to make things that are struggling more viable and things that are OP a little bit not as crazy. So anyway, I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are. My name is Jopa. I hope you have a good one. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously. I hope you have a good one, like I said, and I'll catch you all later.